Hello, my name is Jimmy, and thank you for joining me in something that you probably haven't heard of. This is the brand new 2024 Buick Envista, and it shares a platform with the Chevy Trax. It's, well, not the smallest SUV from Buick, that's the Encore GX. This replaces the old Encore, not to be confused with the GX one. That's a little bit different. In terms of price point, this is going to be the cheapest Buick that you can get. However, you actually get a decent amount for your money here. As equipped, the Avenir with all the options that you can really stack on is 35,000 Canadian dollars, which for a Buick, like a near luxury brand, it's not too bad. Now, they classify this as an SUV, but let's be honest, other than the slightly lifted ride height, it's not really an SUV. It has a sloped roof, which is more like a Sportback these days, and the little 1.2 liter 3-cylinder only propels the front wheels. Here in Canada, we don't really have options in terms of powertrain. In China, I was taking a look because they do have the Envista there with a much more potent 1.8 liter and a panoramic sunroof. Both options that we don't get here. And they also get a cooler like cluster as well, but you know, whatever. We don't get the cool stuff. But this is actually, like I said, a really good bargain at $35,000. But let me break it all down for you. I mean, it looks like a Buick, right? The front end, it has your signature daytime headlamps. It looks the way that it should. On the side, as this is the Avenir model, I got 19-inch wheels and a whole lot of chrome. There's like chrome everywhere on this model. And because it is an Avenir, I got these chrome taillights, which is really, really cool. The standard model, as well as the ST, well, they get the standard like red taillight. So this is actually a little bit more different, and it's very similar to the rest of the Avenir lineup. If we pop open the trunk, there's actually a decent amount of space. As this is the top trim, I do have a power operated trunk, 21 cubic feet in here. More than enough space for whatever you need. And of course, you can fold those rear seats down 60-40 to put in everything that you really want. Underneath the floor, there's a little bit more storage, but it doesn't have that 2-tier kind of storage system. So you can't like use the additional space if you really needed to. You can kind of just throw stuff underneath whenever you have. In terms of the back seat, I'm 5'11", so I have no problems fitting in here. If you are over 6 foot, yeah, definitely call shotgun if you can, because that sloping roofline does not help with, well, the entire headspace there. While you do get USB-C charge points, I don't get anything else back here, which is a little weird because on the Buick website, it shows that you get vents, but for whatever reason, I don't get them back here. If you're planning on fitting child seats in here, happy to say, not a problem at all. Because this does have a little bit more of that extended wheelbase that's almost similar to like a CR-V. Well, there's plenty of space inside. Putting an infant carrier on the driver's side here, there's not a problem at all. Plenty of space for that. On the passenger side, this is a rear-facing Kleck 5. Once again, no issues. My kid, he's 3 years old. He climbs right into it, loves it. Not a problem. And because the headrest kind of folds down, he actually gets a pretty good view of the back. And if you need, you can remove those headrests as well. So if you have a forward-facing seat or a booster and that gets in the way, you can remove them, which is nice. 2 sets of lower anchors. They're kind of weird in, well, a little crevice of a space, but they're decently easy to get access to. And then you got 3 upper anchors behind the bench. As for the front seats, they're heated. They're actually quite nice. The leather is nice and soft. No cooled seats in here, but that's totally fine. The quilting is actually kind of nice in here as well. In front of me is your typical GM heated steering wheel here. You got all the buttons that you normally would have, and buttons behind as well. And then behind that, a digital cluster that looks pretty good initially. Because, well, at first looking at it, you'll be like, oh, a digital cluster. That's actually kind of cool. Until you start utilizing it a little bit more, that's when things kind of, well, fall short. Because if I need to go into the menu, I press this button and it just takes that second for it to load up. Everything takes that second. And it just, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just means that it's a little laggy. And that's the same with the infotainment. This is a little laggy as well. going back to the home menu, going into any of the custom menus that's here, there's just a little bit of delay. It's not your typical GM Google experience that's in here. In fact, this doesn't have your typical Google services like Google Maps. But there is wireless CarPlay as well as Android Auto, so you can just use your device for that. So I guess that's totally okay. Below, you do get your dedicated climate control. Being the Avenir trim, you do have the automated climate control, and that's kind of nice. The only thing that's kind of weird is, I mean, this is the top trim, and I got blank buttons here, which is just a little bit odd. And there's even more buttons below that, just beside the Qi charger. I mean, overall, this interior it's nice to look at. It's quite appealing to the eye. It's not when you start diving into things that well, it kind of falls short. You do get cheaper plastics on the side, on the lower panels. Yeah, it's not the best. And even the dash, while it is stitched, it's not actually stitched. It's just, well, molded. But like I said, it does look good. And in photos and in videos, this is an amazing looking interior. And the places that you will be touching, let's be honest, are totally fine. Other than this armrest, which is a little bit more firm for my liking, but you know, your mileage may vary for that. Underneath the hood, like I mentioned, it's a 1.2 liter 3-cylinder. It makes 137 horsepower and 162 pound-feet of torque. Mated to that is a 6-speed automatic and front-wheel drive. Don't let those numbers fool you, and don't let, well, your typical, you know, auto magazine kind of fool you as well. I mean, on paper, this goes from, well, dead stop to highway speeds in just under 10 seconds. And while yes, that is quite slow, in city traffic, you're not going to notice that because, well, the little turbo engine here does actually quite well in day-to-day traffic. It speeds up relatively fine. It's able to keep up with traffic. It's able to, well, even spin the front tires when it's a little bit damp here. It's not a Nissan Kicks. While it is very similar in terms of like the class that it's at, I mean, subcompact SUV, front-wheel drive, it does have turbo power. And when you put your foot down, you definitely do feel it. But once again, at city speeds, once you get up to the highway, acceleration kind of dulls out a little bit. It's definitely not the quickest, but you know what? It'll still get there. And the best thing about this kind of powertrain is you actually get decent fuel economy as well. Currently, I'm averaging, well, 6.9 liters for 100 kilometers. I mean, that's the best I've done, averaging 7.2. You know what? For a vehicle of this size and how I've been using the throttle, not too bad. In terms of the ride, it's Buick smooth, but it still has a decent, well, kind of driving sensation to it because it's decently light. And because of that, you can just, well, toss it into corners a little bit more than you should. And because of that, it's actually decently fun. No, it's not a sports car. Don't get me wrong. It's nowhere near that. But it's not bad. It's not just super dull. And it is very, very comfortable in here. Being the Avenir model, I do have a Watts Link rear end. And that is different than the base as well as the ST model, unless you go for an option. So this may have a different ride than, well, the base as well as the base ST model. So definitely do try it out. It may be something that you may want to look into just to upgrade it to this Avenir trim. In terms of your active safety features, it does have some of the items that you would expect, like, well, there's forward collision warning. That's pretty typical these days. It does have adaptive cruise, so it's able to see the vehicle in front and keep a safe distance from that. But it doesn't have lane centric. It has lane departure warning and lane departure assist. These names, absolutely insane. So what this vehicle does is, if it senses that you're outside of the lane, it'll try to pull you back in a little bit, but it's not going to help you stay in the center of your lane, so it doesn't like actively drive for you. But it still, well, can keep you safe. And of course, you do have like blind spot monitoring, and on this top trim, I also have cross traffic alert as well for the rear anyways. So when I'm backing up out of a stall parking, for example, there's a car coming on the side, it can warn me, which is definitely nice. The backup camera is okay quality, no 360 option, unfortunately. I mean, overall, this little Buick is surprisingly good. I mean, I'm in love with small vehicles like this. Very similar to like the Nissan Kicks, as well as the Hyundai Venue. I love inexpensive cars that just happen to be good. The Trax is definitely more towards the everyday person. It's a much more, well, a box shape, so you're able to fit more inside. But for someone that may not care too much about that and just want a little bit more style, this is definitely something to consider. And at 35,000, well, just under 35,000 Canadian, it's not bad for the money. Well, at least this looks like a lot more than it actually is. And that's probably the best part about the Envista. The outside, it just looks good. I'm honestly surprised by this. I'm honestly surprised by like just how much I like it. I want to test out the Trax because that's essentially this, except, well, just cheaper. Sure, you don't get some of the luxury goodies in here, but a Trax would make a very, very good, like a family vehicle for your everyday person. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you later. Take care.